Hello, everybody. My name is Deb Coviello and the Drop-In CEO, and I just want to thank you for joining us on another episode of Drop-In CEO Live Talk Media. And it is my pleasure this week to have a conversation about culture and presence with Melanie Booher. Melanie, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Deb.
Yeah, so just a little context for the audience here. And again, thank you again for joining us. We were introduced by some amazing people in our network, and then I get to have these conversations and go a little bit deeper because we know each other, what we do. But I have so many questions. But a little bit on Melanie. She is passionate about workplace culture, over 20 years of experience, and is a certified culture coach. She helps organizations thrive. She is president of People First Talent and Retention Consulting and creator of the Thrive model and Cards for Culture and the Conscious Culture Certification Program. So I am excited to have a conversation with her. Again, we're going to be talking about culture, but also presence. And what does it mean to have presence and be able to elevate that so you're seen, heard, respected, and really get your voice out there? So, Melanie, thank you again. And I'm just so excited, but maybe just share a little bit more about, the work that you do and how it impacts others.
Thank you so much. So, after being a human resource leader for in private corporations and big business, I actually moved into small to mid-sized business. And, I don't often lead with I lead with HR, but I lead with that I'm a culture coach because what I found is the true impact that culture can have on keeping people, right? Retaining them, which came first, the chicken or the egg? You got to recruit the good people, or are you working to retain them? And I find it's a little bit of both. But the kind of work that we're doing, so my consultancy is People First, Talent and Retention, and we actually just recently merged. I had my own business up until then. We've merged together recently because we just kind of found power in numbers. So I'm excited to have new business partners. And we are an HR consultancy, but we operate with a huge culture lens. So under that idea that what can we do? We do a lot of recruiting. We do a lot of handbooks, helping people improve communication. Because people don't know exactly how to buy culture. They do know that it's important, but they're not sure how to exactly make that happen. And so we do that. We're going to talk a little bit more about it here in a bit, but we do it with a combination of utilizing some tools that we have, things that we've created, to make culture more tangible for organizations.
So just curious, and I'm going off script a little bit, but what does it look like when a potential client comes across, is referred to you? What pain are they feeling? What does life look like for them? And how can you help them? I mean, again,
Yeah,
because I want to paint a picture, so if I see them, I can refer them to you.
no, I appreciate it. The pain is usually some form of people problems, right? And every company that has people might have these. We're having turnover and we're not sure why. Sometimes it's, I would say people will come for your culture and mission, but they'll leave because of bad management. And
Mm.
unfortunately, we see that all the time, right? So our job is to really shed light on the problems that are there and then figure out how to fix them. But the tiger has to be willing to change his stripes, right? It comes from all levels. It comes a lot from senior leaders, but we've got to be willing to make the change. Otherwise, we're kind of stuck where we are.
So this conversation can go in a couple different directions. There's the entity of the company itself feeling the pain, where the culture is not serving them and serving the people. And then there's the element of the person that happens to be ingrained in that culture and what can they do to be seen, heard, and respected, whether it's a good or a bad culture. But if we could just go down a little bit more into the organization, and again, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit with my thoughts, so just bear with me. But do you see a difference in different corporations based on demographics? I know I see it when I go into companies. The large companies say they have a good culture, but when you go down to the rank and file, they feel something totally different. And then on the other side, I often work with small and medium-sized companies where they have each other's back. There is a can-do culture, and you just want to hug these people because, like, wow, I can make some real inroads. How do you see companies and their cultures vary on that demographics, or do you see others?
I see a little bit of both. We do say that culture is felt at the team level. So sometimes with those smaller organizations, the reason why you can feel it more is because it's a more cohesive, smaller team. And that's where we put in a lot of our time and work.
Mhm.
People are much more engaged. Now, I've worked for some big companies, and so I also recognized, when I think about those organizations, I felt my team, right, drove the culture. I might have known what the big mission values were, but where the rubber met the road was how we interacted on a day-to-day basis, working together as a team. So when we're impacting these clients, smaller businesses, we're talking to leadership and kind of helping culture go up, down in each direction. In a bigger organization, we're doing more team-based work to make sure that people are feeling, the way they want culture to really, how you really want the culture to be embraced.
So curious though, large corporations, you work with the leadership, you work with the teams,
Mhm.
but how do you bring that together? Because the leadership could say, I want a better culture. The team say, yeah, we want a better culture. But sometimes they're just not able to get over the finish line. What all has to connect to actually make that work?
Yeah, what we see today, and Deb, you've seen this, companies are real quick to put their culture on their conference room walls, right? So they put up those pretty words that we all see, and we can name them. It's innovation and integrity and service. Oftentimes, it's very similar words. Um, but what happens is people don't define those in the same way, right? So if I asked anyone listening to this call today or to this discussion to define integrity, we'd all come up with a very different definition. So the nature of the work we do and actually we play a game with these leadership teams. I'm going to show it to you here. This is
Cool.
Cards
I
for
love
Culture.
games. Awesome.
Yeah. So the idea is we want to define the culture for you. So those words on the wall, we need to get everyone thinking that they mean the same thing. That's how we set those expectations. So when we say, let's use customer service, that's a popular one. When we say we stand for great customer service and we define it with behaviors, because behaviors can be coached, right? That past behavior predicts future behavior. So when we define it and say, to us, great customer service means we go above and beyond. We deliver on a timely basis. We give the customer what they need, not just what they ask for.
Mhm.
Well, when we take that and work it into our habits and into our processes, like our recruitment, we ask very specific questions then about that. And when we hear that language come back to us, like we go above and beyond, we deliver, we can say, oh, that is a culture fit. And that's where the rubber meets the road, right? So you don't have to trust your gut. You can say, we know what a culture fit is because we've defined it. And that's kind of the nature and the brilliance of the game that we've created, that um, we make it happen. And then you can really say, this is a culture fit.
So this so works for me. And again, I'm grateful. Before we jumped on, I was talking about some recent client work. I'm not sure which comes first, but like there's the values, the behaviors, the language. Language is what brings cultures together. I had an opportunity to serve a client and I had to introduce new language around the mindset of problem solving. And I kept using the same new words over and over again. And as I'm getting ready to leave the organization, I hear them starting to use the same words. And it's like, okay, I achieved the goal. It wasn't necessarily the tactical thing I was teaching, but I brought the teams together with a new common language. Now you have to coach it, you have to exercise it like a muscle so it's sustainable, but so true. Link it all together.
Link it together. And so many organizations are chasing that shiny object. And then they, like, maybe if culture is the word, right? And then they're like, okay, well, we've already done that, or I've read the new book, or I've done whatever, but flex the muscle, right? Work
Yeah.
it into your habits so you don't have to stop and think about it. It just shows up in your common language, it shows up in your policy, shows up in how you coach people. A lot of that HR meat of what you do in HR should be driven by your culture and these very exacting words that we're trying to drive within organizations.
So I'd love to take this in a different direction. Again, still staying on the theme of culture. And that's how we should elevate the organization so you have the right ones so they can thrive in. But let's just say you have a new person coming into the organization. First, I want to talk about the new person because a lot of the people I like to serve is also the aspiring C-suite leaders. What are some quick things that they can do to get a feel for what is the culture, either as they're thinking of joining the company? And then sometimes things change once they're in the company. What can they do to really get a feel for that culture and be able to navigate it if it's maybe different from where they came from?
Well, I mean, good and bad, right? Cultures are going to feel very different. That's the one unique thing. That's the competitive advantage that most organizations have, is how different their culture is. So if I was a newbie in an organization and I'm kind of trying to get a grasp for it, culture is what happens when no one's looking, right? It's that stuff that we just do repeatedly. It's how we treat people.
Yeah.
It's how we behave. I would want to kind of find out, is there a plan? There's actually some great statistics that are out there that say, less than 10% of organizations are planning for culture and people. 100% are planning for their finances, 97% are planning for their marketing, but only less than 10% are planning for people and culture. And and yet, if you ask a CEO, well, how important is people and culture? They will say, we gave a scale of 1 to 5. We surveyed 200 people, 200 CEOs, and they said it's a 4.8 out of 5 in level of importance, people and culture, to driving the bottom line.
Mm.
And that's not fluff, right? That's brings profit, makes the company successful. That's important. But then you hear, well, less than 10% have a plan. And that's where the gap is, right? So we have to say, if we really value, if we're smart business people, we got to bridge that gap. We want to be in the elite 10% that are planning for culture and making good things happen. So as a newbie, I'd be looking for the plan. I'd be looking for the common language. Are they living it, or is it just something that is happening in passing?
Yeah, something as simple as, the signs say, "Hey, we value people, communication, openness, open communication." And then I walk in the door of a place potentially and everybody's heads down, or
Mhm.
they hardly acknowledge you, like okay, sign the book over there, and then they go back to their desk. There's something there that's not quite right, at least on a first impression. We need to give it time. Don't always judge on a first impression. But let's now talk about then presence in culture, because sometimes, despite the culture, somebody needs to be able to be seen, heard, and respected. And different cultures are different things. And I know we talked about this before. I talk about in some of my writing recently that if you want to be able to build presence, that you need to work on the foundation of what are your talking points and your thought leadership, that every time you show up, you say the same thing, you have the same talking points or principles. Then there is an exterior look that matches your messaging. And then it's the content that you put out there in the world. Again, how you deliver it makes you
Mhm.
memorable, but the content is so important. So if somebody's going into an organization and they want to start having more presence, are there things that we can align on the culture or things that they could do to make that better happen regardless of the culture?
Yeah, you're speaking to my heart here. So when I think about being present, right, it is about showing up. It's about finding your voice and using it. It's about leaning into those things that make you uncomfortable, but being true to yourself. Um,
Yes.
so recently, I wrote my book. It came out last year, and it's conscious culture. Uh, what I found was that was a great way for me to be present, right? For me to not only get my voice out and say the things and leave a bit of a legacy, but to make sure that I'm showing up every day. So I want to be known as the culture coach, right? The person who knows about culture, and you think about me when culture comes up in your organization. But even taking that a step further, after I wrote the book, everyone kept saying, "Tell me more. How'd you write a book? Where'd you edit? How'd you get it on Amazon?" And I was like, that's part of being present, right? So now I'm present not only as a culture leader, but as an author. And that for me was just a passion project where I started building into, like, let me help other people be more present, build into their personal brand, find their voice. And so kind of again, as a passion project now turned into another business. I guess I really am an entrepreneur. I have a colleague and I that are helping people write their own books, and we do it as a collective oftentimes. So it's shared among leaders, right? So we write under, these are business books where we can actually remove the barriers of writing a book, right? We share the cost, we share the time commitment, we can share the marketing, and we write it as a collective. So one chapter, one headshot, one bio, and really help people show up and be present, make their individual brand what they want it to be. Use it as a marketing tool if you want, which has been amazing for lots of leaders. Um, and just really kind of focusing on, what does that look like for you as a leader?
That is such an amazing offer, because some people have their thoughts. They may have written an article for a magazine, or maybe did a speech or a talk or a webinar sometimes, but they say, "Oh, I can't write a whole book," or, "Oh, I don't have the time or the means." But what an amazing way to get their voice, their place in media out there in a community, and say, "I'm a published author with a great community of people." That is such not easy. They have to make the decision to do it. But again, to your point about presence, being authentic, getting your voice out there, being a published author, that is, think, a tremendous service that you are doing, whether they're in corporate or an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this has been amazing, but I want to make sure I give you enough time because, first of all, I love the opportunity of talking about presence. I just think there are so many aspiring C-suite leaders out there that they never talk about what is this. And so I love the opportunity to talk to you about voice and then trying to navigate cultures and looking for the signs of a great culture. But it's valuable to have these conversations. So I do want to thank you. But I want people to get to know you a little bit more. So are there any last things that you offer or actions that you can propose to them? And also to maybe check out your work because I think what you do and oh my, that game. I've never
Right?
seen anybody do a game before. I
Thank
think that
you.
is so cool. Tell us more about you and anything else we can share with our listeners.
So the biggest thing is to create your plan and build it into habits. And so we give away a free model. The Thrive model can be found on my website, which is thrivewithmb.com. I can also send it to people if they want to connect with me through LinkedIn. So the Thrive model itself is a culture plan. So you can be in that elite 10% by just filling this out, using it as a heat map. It's a pretty cool thing. It's a tree, right? You start in the roots, you build into the branches, and you can really nurture your culture by following this plan. And if you don't have enough content and in that alone to guide you, I wrote my book, Conscious Culture, which really digs into and describes how you can use the Thrive model. So you don't need to hire a consultant. You can do it yourself and read the book. And then, of course, if you need more help, we're kind of saying, hey, yes, we're here to consult if you need it. It leads to a lot of HR consulting. Or we have organizations that are like, yeah, I want to get certified. I want to play that game. I want to learn how to play that game in my organization. And either they'll have us come and do it or they'll learn how to do it themselves. So those are kind of the different avenues. We really are just about making workplaces better, making culture better, one workplace at a time, and trying to just continue to make the world a better place.
I love your work and it's so aligned with mine. While I do a lot of consulting, helping companies and their operations, et cetera, the aspiring C-suite leader, helping one aspiring C-suite leader at a time be the CEO of tomorrow, know what a good culture is, be able to build an amazing culture. I too have the C-Suite Academy helping aspiring C-suite leaders take control of their careers. So we got two amazing brands. I hope people reach out to you, reach out to me as well. And Melanie, it's been a pleasure. And I want to thank you for being an amazing guest and wish you continued success.
Thank you to you too, Deb.